This is Backroads of Illinois, server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. We're glad you're here on today for our program on the show. I'm Cesar Delgado on Backroads of Illinois. I'm joining with Colin Watters from Illinois Corn Growers Association about the trade and demand for Illinois corn. Colin is the Director of Export and Logistics for the Illinois Corn Growers Association. This is Backroads of Illinois.
Um,
I'm joining with Colin Watters from Illinois Corn Growers Association about the trade and demand for Illinois corn. Colin is the Director of Export and Logistics for the Illinois Corn Growers Association. Hi, Colin, how are you and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Colin, good to have you for today. Let's start with our conversation about the demand for Illinois corn. What is the numbers from Illinois corn for each year?
So in terms of demand, about typically about half of the corn that's produced in the state leaves the state in one way or another. So, depending on the year, if weather conditions are bad out west, or if they're bad in the east, there's a lot of corn in the middle in Illinois that can move, out to the Texas Panhandle or down into the poultry markets and hog markets on the East Coast. So it's very much dependent on the year. This past year, it was a really big year for exports. Um, our rough numbers, I'm putting that somewhere around honestly somewhere around 1 billion bushels. And that's a very rough guess. That's my own personal guess. Um, and and that has a lot to do with just the competitiveness of U.S. corn. To be perfectly blunt, corn prices in the U.S. are low. A lot of the other export origins are higher. So U.S. has been priced very competitively. So that does help. It helps to clear the deck, to kind of chew up some of the supply. But it certainly isn't, the from a farmer perspective, you're really hoping for much tighter supplies to drive that price up. So even though it's been a really great year for exports, we're really not seeing uh, uh, we haven't seen prices kind of snap back. But I do think that in the current marketing year, we could very well see another export record. Um, we've also been uh, hitting some export records on other corn products too. So not just corn grain, but corn ethanol, and that's been a very significant uh, you know uh, market in Illinois, but elsewhere too. And right now, Canada is our top ethanol export market. And on the grain side, Mexico is our largest uh, corn market. So as we go into 2026 now, this is you're going to be hearing a lot more about trade policy and the USMCA agreement, the review that is is underway right now. And I guess maybe that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind, or for anybody who's listening, just to kind of be thoughtful of, is that our really our two biggest export destinations for corn and for ethanol are our neighbors, and um, we'll kind of see how the USMCA review goes. But if there's any sort of trouble on the policy side, that could potentially impact uh, exports.
What is the average demand for other countries, like in Mexico, for export?
So Mexico has been, um, let's see, they've traditionally been around 18 million tons, but that's been growing. So, I'm sorry, I have to apologize because I think in tons when I'm talking about exports, and obviously that's not bushels. So you basically just multiply the tons by, call it 40. That's really rough math to get the number of bushels. But
Like in China?
yeah, so that's there's kind of an interesting thing about China. Just a couple years ago, they had imported, I think it was close to 22 million metric tons, or maybe it's just over 20. But at that point, it was a huge book of business, and it was the top uh, corn export destination. The that that happened because there's a handful of things that kind of triggered that. But the one thing a lot of folks might not know is that China's the second largest corn producer in the world, and they have their sights on being totally self-sufficient in corn, wheat, rice, other kind of food grains. So, and that's been a long-term policy position for the Chinese um, government. Yeah, they made a decision a long time ago that they wanted to be self-sufficient in certain grains, and they would import, soybeans basically. And so they don't grow a lot of soybeans. They rely on the U.S. and Brazil for their beans, but they really do want to be self-sufficient in corn. So they've taken some pretty significant steps too, especially in areas that are kind of your non-traditional production areas in China. Traditionally, corn production is really mainly up in the northeast corner, but they're making significant investments in irrigation projects and stuff like that in kind of the interior, and that growth has been significant. So just recently, I think that the latest report that USDA put out, they had increased their production by something like 2%, and that was on top of another another revision up. So China's going to be really, really important on the bean side of things for the foreseeable future. I think that China there's a um, I can imagine a future where China will be competing in the export space in corn, to be perfectly honest. I don't I don't think that it's imminent by any means. Um, but I think that the Chinese will continue to improve their yields, and and I don't think that China will be a major uh, corn export destination anytime soon.
Wait and see.
Yeah.
We can do. What is your takes on the yields trends from corn from the Department of Agriculture?
Oh, that's a really good question. And so, today's report, um, let's see, I'm not sure if we have a state number. I haven't dug into it a lot yet, but the November state yield number was, I think it was 219, um, or was it 221? Anyways, that I I I feel like that's high. There's at least in Illinois, we have there was a lot of trouble in the southern part of the state. The kind of central and east central was okay, not maybe what a lot of folks thought that we might have. Did have a really good crop in Western Illinois, and parts of Northern Illinois as well. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we stay in that, two, somewhere in the mid-teens, I suppose. But I still feel like that's high. But then again, I don't know. The USDA is, um, for all of the, you know, um, concerns that folks might have, it really is kind of the best that we got. And sometimes they're much they are much better at this than I am, that's for sure.
Do you have any concerns about these numbers, which are higher than expected?
So I so on some level, yeah, I've I've been thinking that those numbers are high, um, pretty much all year. But you know, I have a bad tendency to kind of have the your whatever you call it, looking out the back back door, the back door view or whatever, where you just see what's around you and think that that's what's happening all over the country. And that's just not the case. There's folks that have finally had a crop in this year, out in the Dakotas and parts of the plains, where they've struggled, really, really struggled the last few years. So I I, I don't know. I'm I hope I just hope the numbers are right, I guess. But it does feel a bit high, I guess.
Especially the farm economy is not great.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. That's one of um the so in the at the Illinois Corn Office, we have we really have a mandate through the Illinois Corn Marketing Board to drive demand and build markets for Illinois corn farmers. And we're working every day at that, trying to do whatever we can to find and to find demand and boost the existing demand, differentiate markets and so forth. And the other side of that coin, though, is the on the input side. So we're also, um, not necessarily on the with the marketing board but on the growers, on the association side. We've been talking with a lot of the input providers and so forth, trying to uh, find ways to help farmers maybe manage their risk a little bit better. Uh, input prices right now are very, very sticky, and and it's leading to these negative margins, right? Um, uh, Typically, you'll see input prices kind of track with commodity prices long term, but we all know that commodity prices tend to move faster, and input prices are very slow to come down. So uh, I hope I hope that the input price situation moderates. We've seen just recently that uh, some of those prices are starting to come down a bit, but it's still nowhere. We're not really close at all to the prices in 2020, right before the big run up. So it's certainly a concern. Farmers are caught in the middle, and I think that there's a lot of concern about any sort of government subsidy or assistance, because it doesn't really it doesn't affect the fundamentals. It really doesn't affect supply or demand. So I don't know. I don't know how things are going to shake out over the coming year, but I you know our position is that we're going to keep working it day in and day out to help drive demand and try to lower costs any way that we can. Um, but it's shaping up to be another rough year, to be perfectly honest.
Do you have any final thoughts about the corn markets in this new year?
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I would just leave you with is that I am optimistic for a big corn export program this year. I think that those overseas markets are going to continue to grow, and that has everything to do with the fundamentals of just growing population and growing purchasing power and so forth. So I'm I'm very optimistic. I'm very bullish on export demand. I think that if we see maybe some policy change here in the U.S., that could be supportive of say ethanol, for an example. Um, I am optimistic long term, um, but this coming year, I think it's going to be another tough one.
Thanks, Colin. I enjoyed our conversation for today and a happy new year.
Yeah, thank you, Caesar. It was great to talk to you.
I
This is Colin Watters from Illinois Corn Growers Association on today. Do you want to have more information about the Illinois Corn Growers Association? Go to Illinois Corn. Org. I am Cesar Delgado on Today for Back Roads of Illinois.